and welcome everyone to another Deliberate English live stream. My name is Kevin, and I am a business English coach based in Chicago in the United States. And of course, my mission, along with all of Deliberate English, is to help you speak more confidently at work or to help you get a better job. With me today, I have one of the fantastic teachers who helps us in the community and gives feedback every day to our students about pronunciation and grammar and vocabulary. And her name is Alex. So, Alex, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi. So my name's Alex, as Kevin has said, and I work at Deliberate English with the students in the community. I'm currently in Texas in the US, and I've been working with students for uh, 7 years now, ESL students. And the community, I think, is the first place I've seen where, of course, the teachers are giving our all to help you guys learn, but the students really work together and create this safe place for everybody to enhance and practice and improve their English without that pressure of the typical classroom, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the whole thing that you mentioned about having like a safe place to use your English is important because one of the things that we really focus on in the community is constant feedback, right? So everything that
Mhm.
you do, whether it's in a live class or whether it's in a challenge, you're getting feedback from a native speaker about things like your vocabulary, like your grammar, like your word choice, sentence structure, and pronunciation. And of course, the more mistakes you make, the more we can help you.
Yeah.
So it's one of those situations where, yeah, it's good to make mistakes. You have an opportunity and a space where you can freely make mistakes, and you're not going to feel ashamed about it. And in fact, you're going to learn a lot from those, from Alex as well as myself and our other teachers. So, as far as what we're going to do today, we are going to talk to you guys about 5 different expressions that you can use in your next job interview. So these will be expressions that will help you answer questions about your past experience or some of your challenges or weaknesses or some of your strengths even. And so as we go through the material today, we'll be giving you a lot of examples. You'll see how we use these expressions, in what situations you can use these expressions. And plus, you'll also have an opportunity to try writing your own examples using the expressions. And so, just like I said a moment ago, we are all about giving you feedback. That's what Deliberate English is all about. And the same is true on today's class. So, I encourage everyone who's watching this, whether you're live or even in a replay, if you want to try using some of these sentences or some of these expressions, then write your own sentence using them, put it in the comments on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, wherever you're watching this. And Alex and I will then be able to give you feedback live about how you did and if there's anything we would change to make it sound more natural. Does that sound good, Alex?
Yeah, sounds great.
All right. So I'll start with our first expression. And before I explain what it is, I want to just paint a picture for you. So, Alex, imagine that you started a new job. You get your first project, and it's something that you already know how to do. Sounds
Perfect.
familiar, right? You don't need to ask a lot of questions. You are able to hit the ground running, and everyone is happy. How does that sound?
That sounds like the best start to a new job ever.
It does, because you were able to hit the ground running, which is our first expression for today. So, hit the ground running means that you are ready to work and be successful at the beginning of a new activity. So, again, you don't need a lot of coaching, you don't need a lot of examples. Thanks to your past experience, you already have what you need to start doing a job or start doing a project.
So, how would you like apply this concept, this expression to a job interview? Because, like, the example you gave, I already started the job. How do I want my future employer to know that I can hit the ground running? Like, how could I use it in an interview?
That's a great question. And so, what I would say is that this is a great expression to use whenever somebody asks you about your past experience and
Right.
you want to tie that past experience to your new position, right? So, if I was being interviewed for a job as a teacher and maybe I have experience working with that age group in the past, I could say something like, hey, my experience working with teenagers will help me hit the ground running as a high school teacher. Of course, teenagers typically go to high school. So, me being able to highlight that particular experience can then show that employer that, yes, I have the skills, I have the experience working with these people that will allow me to be successful immediately at this job as a high school teacher. I will be able to hit the ground running. Now, of course, you can use this in other ways too. It doesn't have to just be a job interview, right? I could say, in terms of like a meeting, hey, she hit the ground running yesterday thanks to the work she did to prepare ahead of time. So, this would mean that the meeting that we had was successful. We didn't waste a lot of time at the beginning because this person did a lot of work to prepare. So, we hit the ground running in the meeting. We were successful from the start and we didn't waste a lot of time. Does that make sense, Alex?
Yep, perfect sense.
Awesome. Well, that means that it's your turn to be on the hot seat to
Okay.
get one of these interview questions. So, we're going to pretend that you're interviewing for a job here.
Okay.
And I want to see if you can use the expression hit the ground running in your answer. Okay.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. So the question that I have for you is, how do you feel your past experience will help you with this role?
Okay. All right. So, this is an online teaching platform. And when the pandemic shifted work to online, I had to modify a lot of my teaching materials from in person classes to fit virtual classrooms. Thankfully, I had a little bit of experience doing Zoom pronunciation lessons, so I could hit the ground running with a bunch of exercises to engage students and then improving my techniques and methods along the way.
Exactly. Yeah, that sounds great. Very, very good answer. You're hired.
Oh, yes.
Guess you've already been hired, but you're hired again.
Okay.
But yeah, this is a great way to use this expression, and it just adds a little bit of like personality to the answer as well by using an expression like this, and it just kind of helps you build sort of a fun relationship with the person that's interviewing you. I think as well, instead of just using very like basic and standard language all the time.
I definitely agree with that.
All right. So I think that means it's your turn, Alex. What's the next expression that you have for me?
So I am going to tell us a little story. Maybe it relates more to you being the boss. So your client has a problem. They got a wrong order and they called somebody else before for help, but nobody helped them. But thankfully, you are able to leverage your relationships with managers to fix the problem.
Mm. So leverage is the word, huh?
Yeah. So, leverage, we've got the main definition here is that you have something that you can use to achieve something that's new or better. And when we leverage something, the something is typically our experience, or the relationships with knowledge. So, have you had any experience, like, leveraging? Is this a common thing in your work?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's I think it's a good way to really tie skills that you have to maybe a new project or something that you're
Mhm.
looking to work on, or maybe a new job that you're going to work on. And I guess, Alex, so then how do you see this relating to some of these job interview questions, or do you have a couple other examples of how someone might be able to use this expression?
Yeah, so like you said, it really connects your skills to whatever the new job or project might be. So if I was in an interview, I could say something like, if you hire me, I'll leverage my knowledge of statistics and help us create more accurate reports. So I'm leveraging the skills and knowledge I already have, but I'm like pushing it forward and doing something better for the new company.
Right. It's
Uh,
it's kind of like it's kind of like just saying using, right? Like I
Yeah,
can use
use.
my knowledge, but it's a little more of a professional term that you'll
Yeah.
hear a lot in business settings.
Mhm. So another, like, good example that I can think of, so, like, as a salesperson, I could leverage my relationships with CEOs to help us grow the business. So,
Yeah.
again, using my relationships, leverage my relationships to do something new and better.
Right. And I guess as a bonus, so a CEO, if anyone's unaware, that stands for a chief executive officer, which is like the big, big, big boss of a large corporation. And so if you really are a salesperson who has relationships with CEOs, then you should definitely let your interviewer know that you can leverage those relationships.
Mhm, that's definitely a bonus.
That is a big bonus. All right. I'm ready
So
for you to interview me, Alex. What do you got for me?
all right. So, a good interview question for you, Kevin. What was one of the most challenging problems you faced at work, and how did you solve it?
All right. Well, in my previous job, we had this problem where it seemed like all the different salespeople in different areas of the globe were talking about our software, which was the product I was selling at the time, in different ways. And so that obviously creates a little bit of a continuity or consistency issue when everyone is kind of selling it a different way. And so, to try to create a more consistent message, I leveraged my knowledge of the product as well as my content creation skills to create a strategy blueprint that's now used throughout the globe by all of the salespeople to help sell our products in a way that is effective and helpful to the clients. What do you think?
That sounds like you solved a big problem by leveraging your previous very nice and easy and consistent.
Yes, thank you. So, do I have the job? Am I hired now? Or are you still
I,
thinking about
oh, absolutely. Could you start tomorrow?
it? Well, see, now with that kind of question, you're making me think about something in a very stressful situation, which actually is a good little transition point. So, if I'm in a situation like this where I have to make a decision very quickly, you just asked me something and I wasn't really expecting it. Or maybe you're in a situation, Alex, where you need to start a presentation, but the people that you expected to be at your presentation don't end up coming. Maybe your boss was supposed to
Oh,
be there, but she didn't come, and now it's just your coworkers. So
boy.
if you are able to think on your feet, you might be able to change your presentation in a way to focus on the parts that are interesting for your coworkers and remove the parts that were only for your boss, right?
Mm.
So that's a stressful situation. And if somebody
Oh, yeah.
asks you something like that, or something changes on you, or like you asked me, hey, can I start tomorrow? And maybe I'm not ready to give that answer, that is an example of thinking on your feet. All right, so I'm thinking on my feet. This means that you have good ideas and can make decisions quickly in difficult or stressful situations.
That
What do you
is
think about this one, Alex? Do you
definitely
ever use this expression?
Yeah, I have to think on my feet a lot at work, but
Yeah.
it's a very good expression for anybody who doesn't have a lot of time between when they're to do something and when they gotta produce results. So basically, any customer service job, any
Mhm.
client interaction, like anything dealing with other people, you have to be fast. You have to have good ideas and make decisions. So,
Right. How do you feel about thinking on your feet? Is it something you like or don't like?
you start to like it the more practice you get doing it, 'cause it keeps it
Got it.
interesting, it keeps it exciting.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point too. So one of the ways that I see this really tying into a job interview is when
Mhm.
somebody asks you about like your strengths, your weaknesses, or your preferences for something.
Yeah.
And this is one of those things where it could be a strength for you, but it could also be a weakness. And I think
Mhm.
it's important to be truthful about this either way. So don't say that you're good at this if you're not, because not only are you sort of, lying to the person interviewing you, but you also might end up taking a job that you don't like, right? Like
Right.
if you don't like thinking on your feet, you want that company to know that because if their job is 100% thinking on your feet, then you probably want to say no, right?
Right.
Right.
So
And
you
so if this
mentioned like 2 there's like a I am good at it and I'm not good at it. Do you have examples for those?
Yeah, so I could say something like, hey, I'm great at thinking on my feet. Anytime something goes wrong, I can figure it out, right? So if somebody asked me like, hey, how do you feel about working in a environment that's changing a lot, this is an answer that I could say. If I don't like it, or maybe I've sort of learned to deal with it a little more, I could say something like, I really used to hate thinking on my feet, but then I learned that making no decision is sometimes worse than going with your best guess. So, Alex, are you ready to answer an interview question using the expression think on your feet?
Let's give it a try.
Well, you can think on your feet as you give your answer about thinking on your feet. So, Alex, how would you feel about working in a fast paced environment? And as a quick little comment, if people don't know what a fast paced environment is, that just means a workplace where things change all the time. And what you do every day might be different. Maybe one day you work on this project, but then the next day you have to change and work on that project. So, a fast paced environment means things change a lot and your work is not always predictable. So, again, Alex, how would you feel about working in a fast paced environment?
So I would say I love working in a fast-paced environment. Actually, in the past, I was a huge theater nerd. So I did musicals, I did festivals, and I did improv for quite a few years. And I learned to think on my feet in really huge audiences. These improvisation skills for the like improv comedy transferred into teaching in the classrooms because you never know like what kinds of questions students are going to ask you and you don't know where the class is going to go. Like you have a plan and it can go anywhere before the end of the class period. So I
Hmm.
absolutely love the chance to think on my feet and work in that fast-paced environment.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think the improv connection is very good. Improvisation, of course, is a great skill to have, both as a teacher, but also as a student, and getting used to that too, especially in English, will help a lot with your real conversations. Because, of course, when you're having a real conversation with somebody, you don't get to have a list of notes and things you prepared. You
Right.
have to improvise. All right. So, as a quick reminder for anyone who is watching, if you do want to try using any of these expressions that we've talked about and get some live feedback, you can do so by putting your example sentence in the comments. And just as a recap, so far we've covered hit the ground running, leverage, and think on my feet. All right. Alex, I think you got another one for me. What's next?
I do. So this one, if you can imagine a certain kind of job, maybe like in the medical profession. So you love your job, and every day you are on the front lines helping your patients get healthy. So you love working every day with regular people and seeing them improve. So on the front lines. I'm sure maybe you've heard this a lot in the news lately too, especially about
Mm,
medical workers being on the front
yeah.
lines. So, this is a job where you work directly with the customers, with the patients, with ordinary people. It is like face to face, direct on the front line. For example, if you're a teacher, you work with students directly. You are
Right.
on the front line as an educator. If you are a principal or a superintendent at a school, you're not really on the front lines. You're more in the back, and the teachers are right there doing all of the face to face communication. Uh, you could also be on the front lines in sales because
Yeah.
you're talking directly with clients, you're talking directly with customers, other companies. But for example, someone in accounting, probably not on the front lines. They're in an office
Gotcha. So,
working
so,
on the
so
numbers.
basically, so basically, you have to be working with real people who are in
Yeah,
some way a client of whatever it is your company or organization does, right?
right.
Um, because even like you gave the example of accounting, like obviously accountants are going to work with people, but they're
Yeah,
only going to work with like other coworkers at the company. They're not going to work with the actual users or customers of the company, right?
right. Yeah, there's going to be a line between them. It's going to be the frontline workers, between the accountants and then the customers. There's the customer service reps, the sales reps, and all of this.
Gotcha. And now I think this is one where there's actually like a second way that you might hear it used, right? So what's that
Right.
second definition of on the front lines?
Right. So on the front line, there's a bonus where if you are doing something that is really important or really interesting, really difficult, your role is on the front line. And you might hear it with like on the front lines of technology, like the tech industry, or on the front lines of science because you're inventing new things and it's
Hmm,
really important and really interesting.
gotcha. And so in what situations in like a job interview would you see using either of these definitions for on the front lines being a good fit?
So, if I want to emphasize my experience working face to face with people and like really show my communication skills or at least my customer service or communication experience, I could say something like in the past, I worked on the front lines teaching English to immigrants. So, I was face to face with the students, teaching them directly.
Okay.
If I wanna use that bonus, the,
Hmm.
like, advanced, exciting, interesting on the front lines, I might say something like, uh, "I work on the front lines of finance, and I'm helping develop a new app that uses Bitcoin."
And of course, Bitcoin being this new fancy technology,
Right.
and the fact that you're developing or creating something that makes it sort of front lines of finance, right? Because not everyone in finance is doing this yet. You're creating
Mhm.
something new, and that's what makes it, in this case, being on the front lines, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay. All right. I think I'm ready to be tested here.
Alright,
Test me
let's
on this
go.
expression.
So, do you have any direct experience working with clients?
Well, in fact, I do, Alex. I spent nearly 9 years working on the front lines selling cybersecurity software to large global corporations. And I learned a lot about how to effectively sell our products in an attractive way for all of our clients. What do you think?
I think you are definitely well experienced working on the front lines with 9 years. That's impressive.
Yep. Yep. And then I went from that on the front lines job to this on the front line jobs on the front lines job working with students. So been on the front lines for a while now.
Would you have it
All
any
right.
other way, though?
Probably not. Probably not. All right. So for the last expression for today, Alex, let's say our
Mhm.
interview is about to end. It went really well, which I think is true, right? We had some good
Yeah.
answers. We used all these expressions right. And let's say I really loved you and I told you that I'm going to pay you $1 million a year to work for me. Of course, if I say something like that, you probably are going to want to get it in writing so that there's no confusion and I can't change my mind later. So the expression here is get something in writing. And this is how we ask someone to give us a written confirmation via like an email or a letter so that there's no confusion or changes in the future related to what somebody promised you. And just as a note, it's not always the case that somebody's going to purposely lie to you,
Mhm.
but a lot of times, especially at bigger organizations, there's a lot of people involved with hiring someone. And so the
Right.
person who told you about your salary on the interview probably has to talk to someone in HR who might have to talk to someone in finance. And if that person interviewing you forgot to say to those other people what they offered, then that's where some of this confusion might happen. So of course, if I offered Alex $1 million a year, she would definitely want to ask me for that in
Oh,
writing.
yeah.
Does that sound about right?
That's definitely true. So if I wanna ask for it in writing, can I just do that directly in the interview? Are there any, like, good ways to ask?
Yeah, it's a pretty safe, pretty normal answer to give or question to ask towards the end of an interview, if that person did give you some sort of promise or offer.
Mhm.
And you can ask it by simply saying something like, "Hey, can I get that in writing? Can I get that? Can I get it in writing? I'd like a copy for my records." Or
Okay.
if you are the person doing the interview, you might proactively offer someone and say, "Hey, I'll send you an email with everything we discussed today so you have it in writing." And that way you help the person you're interviewing feel a little more relaxed about what you talked about. They don't feel like they had to take a billion notes and
Right.
they don't have to worry about there being any sort of confusion in the future about the offer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect sense.
Awesome. All right. Are you ready to try using this in a job interview question?
I think so.
So, Alex, do you have any questions about that $1 million offer I just made for you?
Well, your offer's very generous and pretty straightforward. But that being said, if possible, I'd like to get it in writing. Could you send me an email after the interview, please, with all of the information? I can review it.
Yes, I would be happy to do so. But
Great.
if I accidentally, miss a few zeros in there, don't get too mad.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, those are the 5 expressions that we had for today. Let me just do a quick recap of all of them. The first one that we had was hit the ground running. This means that you are ready to work and be successful on something at the beginning of a new activity, thanks to your preparation or your previous efforts on something. Alex, what was our second expression?
So, our second one was leverage. And this is using something that you already have to achieve or make something new or better. So, we leverage our experiences from previous jobs, we leverage our relationships with people, or our knowledge to make something happen, make something better,
Exactly. It's kind of a fancy version of use.
right?
Fancy professional version of use. All right. The third expression was think on my feet. This again means that you have good ideas and can make decisions quickly in difficult or stressful situations. And so, again, this is a good one to use if you're talking about strengths or weaknesses. And you can, depending on who you are, this could be a strength for you or this could be a weakness for you. But either way, it's a good thing to talk about so that you can make sure that not only are you a good fit for that company, but that company and that role is a good fit for you.
That's important.
Yeah. What was our fourth expression, Alex?
So our fourth one was on the front lines, and this is mainly a job working directly with people, uh, clients, students, patients, but directly working with people. Or it could be the little bonus where you are in a role that's doing something really important, really interesting, or like really difficult, like on the front lines of finance, on the front lines of technology.
Perfect. And then our last expression was get something in writing. Again, this is a great way to professionally ask someone to send you a confirmation in an email or a letter about some sort of promise or offer that they made to you in an interview. Again, I gave the funny example of offering $1 million per year to Alex to teach English with me. And of course, if I made a promise like that, she will definitely want to get it in writing so I can't change my mind. All right. Well, Alex, thank you so much for your help today.
Yeah.
And as a quick note for everyone, if you are interested in working more with Alex and I to speak more confidently at work, I encourage you to schedule a free 30-minute call with me. You can scan that QR code right there, or you can go to deliberate.community/call. And let me just put that in the comments right here, deliberate.community/call. And that will allow us to have a nice little call together. We'll talk about your goals, your challenges, and how myself and Alex and our other native speaking business English teachers can help you reach your professional goals. So, again, I encourage everyone who needs to speak more confident English at work to schedule a call with me. We'll talk all about you and how we can help you reach your professional goals. All right. So I think that is it for today. Again, Alex, thank you for joining. Hopefully, I didn't make you think on your feet too much today.
No, it was a really good time. I hope everybody learned some really good expressions and can use them.
Awesome. Well, again, for everyone watching, thanks for tuning in live or watching the replay afterwards. I look forward to talking to you some more and helping you with your English. So, bye bye. Have a good one.